don't neglect cash management at any stage of running any kind of business. It's very easy to spend money on things that you don't even notice. If you think about what our job is to get people to spend money on things without them noticing. And other people are doing that to you. What I always say is I like strategies that have a little bit of an annoying lift in the early stages of testing the strategy. Because what that means is, 50% of people are going to be like, oh, it's too hard, I'm not going to bother. And you get it for yourself.
Email and SMS marketing automation. Now, is it the sexiest topic? We think so, but everyone might not agree. But if done right, is it one of the best ways to make more money for your store? 100% yes. It's one of the most effective ways to become more profitable on a daily basis. And that's why Ecom Growers is offering to build out your backend email and SMS automations for free until you start making more money from them. Trusted by over 100 7- and 8-figure brands, Ecom Growers has developed a simple yet effective system to turn more of your traffic into buying customers. And they're willing to build it out at no cost until they start producing more revenue for you. It's literally a risk-free investment. So head over to ecomgrowers.com, link in the description below, and schedule a call to reserve your spot before they fill up. Welcome to another week's episode of the Messenger Mastermind podcast. As always, I'm your host, Jeremy Horowitz, and today we're joined by another incredible guest, someone who's going to get really into how to actually make your creatives work on TikTok. So without further ado, let me introduce Tim Keane, the founder of Loop Club. Tim, how's it going?
Good. Nice to chat to you, Jeremy.
Yeah, I'm really excited. I feel like we've been going back and forth in a while over LinkedIn and email and a couple calls. So I'm glad we finally got to do this. So before we dive into the good meat of the episode today, you want to just give a quick background on how'd you get into this crazy game of ecom?
Yeah, absolutely. I did not come from this background at all. I was in a band. I was in a touring rock band. I was playing drums, like touring around the world. And it was great. It was really, amazing, incredible experience. I was on the road all the time, but you don't make any money at all. I mean, all of this Joe Rogan, Spotify stuff is really shining a light on how little money you make in the music industry right now, but you don't make any money at all. So I was trying to figure out how to make money while we were on the road, something that I could do while I was traveling. And I started drop shipping. And, I got about as far as you can get. What I like about drop shipping is obviously what I didn't know is it's another way to make no money, but I learned every skill, and I learned how to run Google ads. I learned how to run a business. I knew the ins and outs of Shopify. And then I fell into Mute 6 and kind of parlayed my experience into a Google ads job there. And being self-taught really has a lot of advantages in this industry because I was just like, I didn't know any rules. I didn't know what to do. I just knew that I wanted to grow my clients' accounts. So I got really deep, started running YouTube, started making landing pages, got really good at Google Shopping and scaled a bunch of accounts pretty quickly. And then after that, I just kind of left. I just wanted to try something else. No harm, no foul. Like, I love Mid-6, but I just was ready to try something else. And then the pandemic hit, and then everyone was hitting me up. All of a sudden, media buyers, like good media buyers or good strategists, were just like super, super in demand. And I've just been sitting at my computer since then. Like literally since March 2020, I haven't really stood up from my computer. And it's been awesome. It's been a crazy ride. Running an agency is hard. It's been very interesting. I've learned more than I've ever learned doing anything else in my whole life. And now we're working on, some really great 7- and 8-figure e-commerce brands that are, scaling really quickly.
That's very cool. I've always had this hypothesis that someone who wanted to get out of drop shipping would make an amazing e-com manager, performance marketer, so many people, especially when they're at 7-figure stage, I need to hire somebody. Who should I hire? And my first recommendation, and no one ever takes me seriously, is hire somebody who's done well in drop shipping, but doesn't want to do it anymore. Because I agree, you make an interesting point about it's hard to actually make money in drop shipping, but you really do have to learn the ops side, the inventory side, the ad side, how to actually build the funnel, get sales through, cross-sell. So it's so interesting that you had that experience and it translated so well to now where you're running Loop Club. So for anyone who isn't familiar with Loop Club, can you just give the quick overview of what you all typically work on and what type of either ad campaigns or marketing that you are typically working on with clients?
Yeah, absolutely. So we drive growth for Shopify e-commerce brands. So most of the time we're usually trying to kind of push forward and find channels or activities that not everyone else is doing, do them very, very well. At the moment, what we're working on with most of our clients is some form or some combination of rapid creative testing on Facebook, identifying TikTok influencers and leveraging their content both on TikTok and on Facebook, and then getting really, really deep in their performance marketing channels, specifically Facebook and TikTok, in order to scale a brand. And I have a Google background, so I bring that to the table too. But for the most part, we've found our real strong suit right now has been in the intersection of creative and media buying, which is that's become the commodity, the rare currency in iOS 14.
Yeah, definitely. So I feel like let's dive right into it, because I feel like this is a good transition to what a lot of people are, I don't want to say struggling with, but it definitely in the middle of migrating a lot of that time and budget and resources from Facebook to what I think will probably be like the last major social ad platform of TikTok. So what have you seen like brands do well, where like 70, 80% of our budget, overall marketing budget used to go to Facebook, migrating over to TikTok? Like what have brands done that have been successful getting more into more of a TikTok heavy ad mix?
Yeah. So there's a couple of things that I'm seeing in the space that are fundamental. I'd say the first thing is you can't really migrate away from Facebook if you're still hyper focused on tracking every click or tracking every conversion, because you're not going to see the numbers that you want to see. If you aren't already thinking from a blended perspective, if you aren't running a post-purchase survey that gives you real data on like where your customers are buying, you probably won't find success because you're so caught up in does the number look right in the platform that you're not quite looking at the overall business. So that's one of the reasons why it's cheap right now, because the brands that are succeeding or the brands that are really leveraging it are measuring with post-purchase surveys, or they're measuring with Northbeam, or they're doing something outside of platform analytics that allow them to know their success. That's the first thing, and that's why it's working, because not everyone's doing that. The second thing is media buying, like what audiences you use. How do I structure my campaigns? Do I spend $100 or $120 a day? None of that matters anymore, or at least it matters in such a low percentage of the total amount that it matters, that it's almost like it's more than it's not worth your time to think about. You're actively wasting time that you could be spending thinking about something that moves the needle. So the most important thing is high performing creative with a strong hook. TikTok is its own aesthetic. It is a very unique and weird aesthetic. It is very fast. What we think of as fast Facebook creative is not fast enough. It is completely unbranded. If you look at the top 100 ads in the US right now, which you can in TikTok, almost none of them are branded ads. You'll have no brand recognition coming off it. It's really about personal connection, straight to camera. It's kind of like an exaggeration of the UGC mashup that we've been running for years. But both of those things are binary. Like if you're not thinking about tracking correctly, and if you're not making the right creative, like you will fail, and then you'll think these new platforms don't work. So that's really it.
Okay. And it's so interesting because most of that sounded like just the basic fundamentals of marketing, period. So it's really interesting that you kind of broke it out that way. One question that I had for you is for those top 100 performing ad creatives, because I feel like this is a little bit of like blasphemy for a lot of traditional marketers. If there is no brand recognition, how are they performing so well, and how are they driving so much sales?
Yeah, great question. And yes, all of this is fundamentals. And it's so funny, like when you get more advanced in this, I feel like no one ever says anything that is revolutionary or like completely like, oh my God, I've never thought of that. Like it is just a different way of applying the same fundamentals. Like, is your hook strong? Is your messaging clear? Is it native to the platform? Is it relevant to your target audience? Like there isn't anything else ultimately. But I think there's a lot of distractions along the way because the technology takes thought, the technology takes work to understand, and the kind of person who falls into this job may be more interested in the technology than in the marketing science itself. So that's where I think the disjunct happens. But back to the question, Tell me the question again.
Yeah. So, right, like I have this real like authentic UGC piece of ad. I'm running it. I'm spending a lot of money to it, but there's no brand recognition. My
Oh
logo's
yeah.
not in anything. I'm not like hawking product. How do we actually, from like a traditional direct response perspective, like how do we actually go get people to buy? Or
Well,
how
I
does it
would say
perform well?
it's very direct response, but it's just not branded in the sense that it doesn't contain brand elements. Like you'll never see the logo anywhere. You'll never see the brand font or the brand guidelines. Like you would think it was a normal TikTok right out of the gate. And I think that's important because, on every platform, you're stopping the scroll, right? You're trying to take someone's attention out of something that they're doing. And I think in particular, it's particularly important on TikTok because you're not like scrolling in the same way as normal on Facebook, where like if an image is like kind of loud, it'll jump out at you. You're pressing a button and you're kind of selecting in real time. And so if you see something that doesn't look right, doesn't look normal, you'll just automatically press that button. Be like, oh, okay, get to the next thing, get to the next thing. But if it looks native, it looks like what someone would make anyway. I think it gets the defenses down essentially, and then you're allowed into the video and you watch and you identify with that person. And I mean, it is still super direct response. You set up a pain point, you walk through the value propositions of the product, you demonstrate it, you show it super up close. It's all the same. Like none of this changes. It's just in this new aesthetic. And I think maybe the only thing that's even more exaggerated is that, there's always been this tension between brand and performance marketing on Facebook, and brand marketers are always worried that the font isn't right or that the image is too loud or that the motion is too fast or like it's somehow kind of devaluing the brand. And I think what's useful about TikTok as a medium is there's no chance of that happening because everything else is unbranded anyway. It's just a traffic source. It's just a way of getting people to your brand experience. And if you don't play by the rules, it's probably not going to work anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's so fascinating. I feel like Instagram was one of the last battles of like where brand really maintained and performance was like, no, this is actually how the platform works. And eventually it went over. Whereas now it just seems like brands completely lost the argument and TikTok is all about just like authentic virality and authentic engagement. So what I hear just from so many brands is like we're running TikTok ads, we see good in-platform performance, but we can't get people to the website. So like how would you structure, like, is that a targeting issue? Is that a creative issue? I'm assuming it's always some function of both. But like, how do you really think about like, okay, we have that hook, we have that great creative, we can get people's attention, but how do we get them like out of the TikTok vortex? I guess is my question.
Yeah, I mean, it's really difficult. It's really difficult because it's very, very engaging. I mean, I think you need that super strong call to action, strong reason to go to the website. I've seen promo creatives, discount creatives do really well. You really need to create that heightened sense of urgency. If there's something, if you can do a flash sale, if there's something specific you can do, it really is like, what is the reason to stop doing this very addictive thing that you're doing that is, super pleasurable? And it has to be more than like, oh yeah, I saw this cool thing that I kind of like that I think would be interesting. It's like kind of the same as old school Facebook, like needs to change my life. I need to do it right now. You need that urgency, which is, not that hard to cultivate. But I think it is hard for most brands because you don't always have a real thing and you don't want to fabricate it. You don't want to make it feel like you're on a 24/7 flash sale going back to the drop shipping days. So it's just challenging to find the right event or the right reason to go to the website.
Yeah, that's so interesting. Also, it just reminds me so much of like the old Dan Kennedy quote of like, what's that piece of marketing that's going to get somebody in a 2-foot snowstorm to put on their boots and walk to the mailbox to like mail you back a check? So I guess my question is like, how do you think about that then? Like, is TikTok we're running budget every day and we're constantly optimizing? Or is it more of like, we have this big event, we spin up ads and we try to really optimize against that? Like, how do you think about that big event and that big motivator to get someone over?
Yeah, I mean, I would say you can spend more when there is a big event. But I also think that it's a top of funnel channel. It's something that you can run incrementally to your Facebook ads, or you can take budget away from that. But even more than its power as an advertising platform, I would think of it as the source of the aesthetic of all ads. Like, you kind of want to see it as a place where your creators come from, where your ad types come from, where your influencers come from, where your ads come from, and then repurposing that content all the way across the funnel on Facebook and on Instagram. It just works so well because people are, it's a hyper engaging format. So I would run evergreen for sure. I mean, depending on the product, depending on the quality of the video, but I would think of it more as a content generation pipeline that is, infinitely reusable than like your go-to new channel.
That's so interesting. Okay, so we had Brett from Kizik on at the end of last year, and he said that's exactly what they're doing is they're just sourcing a ton of content and then pumping it throughout their other advertising channels. So like, walk us through how you actually do that. Like, is this just old school influencer seeding, or is this a different type of UGC? Like, how are you actually just using TikTok essentially as a giant content mine to pump into your ads on platform? And it sounds like mostly for other platforms.
Yeah. So there are a few people doing this in a few different ways, and we've kind of built a model that's a little bit of a hybrid of what we liked about everyone else. So someone that everyone should probably follow on Twitter is Savannah Sanchez. She is the master of this. Her process is she has, a team of creators, like 15 creators who are kind of, on the payroll, and the briefs are very scripted. They are, thoughtfully put together to be direct response ads, and then they're shot and edited every week. So it's a production in a TikTok style way. That's one end of the spectrum. On the other end of the spectrum, there are influencer seeding programs where you're reaching, and there's a company called Kinship who we've been working with some of our clients who do this really well. You send 500 products out. You don't ask for anything in return. You get, 100 people who say yes, or maybe you send 500 emails to influencers. You get 100 people who say yes. You get, a bunch of pieces of content from that. You don't have very much control over what the content is, but you're kind of leaning on their ability as creators or their ability as influencers in order to get stuff made for you. So they're the two ends of the spectrum. One is very tightly controlled and produced by an in-house team, and the other one is like, just give a bunch of content to people, build the relationships, you'll see what happens. Both of them are valid strategies and useful strategies, and I love working with teams that do them both. What we do in-house is build briefs for the kind of content that we want. And then we submit those briefs using an influencer sourcing platform to TikTok influencers specifically. So we say, we want content that looks like this, that is this kind of style of video. If you are particularly interested in this niche or in this product or in this vertical, like, apply to work with us on this thing. And they name their price. It's usually super, super affordable. And then they put the videos together for you. We've found that to be a pretty efficient workflow from our side, because you're getting people who are specifically interested in the product. B, you're getting people who have experience with making these kinds of ads for brands before. And then C, you're also doing it through a submission process. So we're not running a process where we, send cold emails to thousands of influencers a day, which is a great process to run. It's just not our core competency. So we've found this to be really good. I like doing it. You get some really creative and interesting content, and you have enough control over the process that you can kind of force them to make it a little bit direct response and really hit the value props you want them to hit. Obviously, every day we optimize and iterate this process, so it's changing in real time, but we've got content that is in line with what we're looking for.
Yeah, that's so interesting. Okay, because I appreciate the Goldilocks approach there, because I feel like if it's too scripted and controlled, you're missing out on like what are the other ways to pitch this? And if you just get everything back, it's the like, well, crap, we just missed, and we have not. If none of them hit, we have nothing to run. So, like, I guess my biggest thing is this all sounds expensive. So, like, how do you get over the cold start problem of like, we need to invest in all of this content to then invest in the ad budget? Like, for somebody who's doing well and starting to scale up, but maybe doesn't have a big production budget, like, how would you recommend like getting those first step or two to get that winning ad to then drive the sales to then invest back in like more of this fully fledged program that you're talking about?
I would say it's not as expensive as you might think. If you're spending, 50, 70, 200 grand a month on ads, you can take a little bit of that out and put it into your influencer program. Your ads will perform better. I I mean, I think people are waking up to this now, but if you think about that media budget, less as like, here is my budget to spend on media, and more is, here is what I'm going to put into my advertising program, and I want to get this to work as efficiently as possible. Then all of a sudden there's an easy argument for working with influencers. And it really isn't that expensive. Like, some of the best performing videos we've gotten for $50, 50 to $100. And it's because the platform's so new. It's because people are excited, people are creative, and that's the going rate. Like, there's a lot of influences. I would say the most important thing to get started would be to think before you submit the briefs, because that's where the money gets lost. The money gets lost when you do things in an unthinking way. If you're like, oh, okay, I'm just going to blast a bunch of product out. I don't know my value props. I don't know what I really want from this content. I don't have examples of good and bad content. And you give people vague instructions, you'll get vague content back. If you say to people, like, here is what I want, here is what it looks like, here are examples of how we've done it before, can you do this for us? You're much more likely to get a winner out of the gate, and that's going to save you a lot of money in the sense that, like, you don't need to do 50 influencers. You just need 5 good ones.
Yeah, I guess most people are probably operating on the assumption of like 10% will hit, so we want to seed a bunch. Yeah, this is so interesting. Okay, so I guess a little bit of free coaching call here. What would your ratios be? Let's say we're spending that 50 to 70K in budget a month. Like, how much should we be putting to content creation versus eventually running the ads itself?
Yeah, if you're spending 50 grand a month, I would take maybe 5 grand and put it into influencers every month.
Okay, it's like 10%.
Yeah, I think that's totally reasonable. I think I would spend a couple of months doing that and see what kind of performance you get, whether or not it's going to work for you. What I would say to do with it is make sure you're really leveraging, every piece of it. Make sure that you're whitelisting on Facebook and Instagram. Make sure that you're spark posting on TikTok, where you run ads through these influencers' profiles. Make sure that you're repurposing that content into top performing UGC ads. Like, don't just run what they give you, like, cut it up, think about it, mix it up. I would be spending more energy thinking about creative in general. We see that the faster you're able to iterate creative, the faster you see performance. Like, it really is that simple. So any way that you can generate more content cheaply, cost effectively, is worth doing. And, it doesn't all have to be from influencers. Like, we set up for some of our clients flows, post-purchase flows, where people can submit straight to camera testimonials. Where it's like, get a $50 gift card automatically if you submit this video ask, or Tolstoy is the one that we use, like those, feedback recording software. And we have some clients who just have thousands and thousands and thousands of customer testimonials. So I don't care how you get this content. You just have to get it.
Yeah, I have 2 follow-up questions to that, and that's such a good point. We had Chris Mead from CrossNet on last year, and he talked about the exact same thing, where they just have like an email flow, and they just have so much UGC that I guess now they like really have a robust program, but it was just feeding their ad pipeline. So my 2 questions is, first one I think is gonna be a quicker one. You mentioned fast a bunch of times. If we're used to creating, I don't know, content for Facebook every 2 to 3 weeks, maybe multiple times within that period, what is fast? Like, what do you mean by when you say fast for TikTok?
We like to make new iterations or make new variations of ads every week. So the way that we've been doing it here is every Monday is our brief writing day and our creative analysis day. So we pull all the top performing ads from all our accounts. We see, okay, how is this doing? Does it need a new hook, or is it fatiguing, and do we need a new whole thing? So we decide like what we're going to do with that piece of creative. And then we figure out what the brief is and get that pushed to our editors and our creative team. And then, it gets made when it's made, it gets launched over that week. And then the next week, the process starts again. Now, if I was spending, 400, 500K a month, if I was a brand that was really heavily invested in paid media, I would go much faster than that. I would have a full-time editor. I would just get an editor and just have them cranking out content all day. Just make as much as you can. More is more. I think this weekly cadence is working for us for the brands of our size, and then also because we are putting pretty significant thought into it. We're leveraging the second a creative type works for us on one account, we just roll it out across all our other accounts straight away. So we get a lot of learnings like that. We are spending kind of the right amount that the ads last longer. But on TikTok, I would try to get as many different TikToks as you can in order to continue to test, because creative fatigue is very real.
Yeah, and I can only imagine that the more you use the platform, the worse it is. So I want to get to whitelisting after this, but I have one more follow-up question on this okay, we brief on Monday, launch the ad intro week. How long are you running those tests for before you decide to kill or throw more budget behind it?
I mean, it depends on how well they perform. You can tell if something's not going to work really quickly. Something's like,
like a couple hours, a couple days?
People tell you to wait a day before you look at any Facebook ad. And I believe that. I agree that that's true. That being said, I'll still look at my in-platform metrics right away. I'll be like, oh, okay, this click-through rate's terrible. Like, I know this is going to fail. Like, I'm just going to watch it fail a little bit. I do think you can make decisions pretty quickly, but I think that really comes from your level of confidence and experience in the platform. I wouldn't say like, oh, here's a hard and fast rule. I do think I wouldn't turn something on or off until you see some actual conversion data. And we know that a lot of conversion data is being missed, right? So we're losing 30, 50% of conversions. So you're probably going to wait a little bit longer than you would otherwise. But, if you look at this stuff all day, you have a pretty good sense of it. I wouldn't make a hard and fast rule.
Okay. Yeah. It's like training your algorithm to game the ad platform's algorithm and know like how it's going to pan out. So my other big question for you is whitelisting. For someone who isn't familiar or someone who hasn't done it before, can you give us like the 2-minute crash course on what it is and how to set it up?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's funny. We were talking about this before the call. This is something that I've been doing for years, that I think many brands have been doing for years, but has never really caught the mainstream. Hasn't really become like, oh, every single person does this. And I think it's because
it's every buyer's favorite secret.
Exactly. And what I always say is I like strategies that have a little bit of an annoying lift in the early stages of testing the strategy. Because what that means is, 50% of people are going to be like, oh, it's too hard, I'm not going to bother. And you get it for yourself. So whitelisting is running ads through an influencer or a third-party account. So you've probably seen these ads. Fenty, like major advertisers who do this all the time, like Fenty, Rent the Runway, and then you'll see like a lot of pet brands do it. I would say most larger brands have experimented with this in some way or should have. It typically works. It almost always works because it looks different. It looks native. You can use, someone's specific user-generated content. You're leveraging their credibility. It's not important that they have a big following. In fact, it's like not important at all that they have a following. What's important is that the name of the thing is not the name of the brand. That's the make or break, and that's why it works. So you can do this with people who aren't particularly popular. What you have to do in order to do it is request access to their page. And this is where everyone gets stuck because it's annoying. Most of the time you're wrangling an influencer. They don't necessarily know the ins and outs of Facebook Business Manager. They don't know if they have a Instagram business account or Instagram personal account. So that's where it becomes difficult. So typically what I do is I just get on a call with them. I'm like, look, we're going to do it on the call. And you can do it in about 2 minutes if someone's on the phone with you, and it's about 7 back and forth emails. So you just request access to their page. If they have an Instagram business account, you're all set, and it's very easy. You just show them how to accept your access request to the page, which is a little bit dependent on how their Facebook's set up. But once that's done, you're good to go. You have access. You can just choose their page as if it was a normal part of the business. And then you just run content. So you test their content that they've made. You can test just your regular ads. You can test just random statics. One of the best performing ads in one of my older accounts was just like a bad screen cap from a video that they made that just kind of, it was just showed the product up close. It was kind of a little bit gross and like jumped out in the feed on a whitelisting account. And the CPA was literally 50% of what the rest of the account was. And you just sit there and you're like, okay, like you can do this all day. And I've
How much
seen,
can I spend?
yeah, I've seen similar numbers. And what I like about this as a strategy, we were just talking about building processes before, and how Chris is building that pipeline is there's always something else you can test, because you can just get another influencer. It's just, okay, get me more influencers, get me more UGC. What about a celebrity? What about a larger name? What about a smaller name? What about an unboxing? What about a straight to camera? Like, you don't have to think very much in order to think of new ideas. You just continue to run the process that you've been running. And that's the goal in this industry. Like, you're going to have to keep testing anyway. So you want to build yourself a really easy to replicate process that, is going to continue to give you gains over time.
Yeah, and I think everybody starts an influencer, but I've actually seen a lot of brands, and especially in my feed personally, start to deliver a lot of pub, like blogs
Yeah.
and magazines and like that type of thing, like, from accounts as well. And I think the creative thing that I'm seeing there is that it's, again, the same authentic. It doesn't look like it, almost like it's better that it doesn't look like it's from the brand, and it's that same thumb stopper. So I know you mentioned that you can start to do this on TikTok. Can you quickly just walk through, like, are there any major differences between doing this on TikTok versus Facebook? Is there anything you should be aware of if you wanted to start throwing budget behind, I think you called it Spark, or like Spark advertising on TikTok? Like, what are the differences that someone should be aware of if they are already doing it on Facebook?
Yeah, I think the nomenclature is the thing. It's Spark. People call it Spark posting. So the nomenclature is important. It's actually much easier to do on TikTok. They kind of baked it into the platform. You literally just have to like drop in a number, drop in the person's number, and then they request it on there. And it's like pretty cut and dry. It's really not very difficult. I would it's TikTok, right? So you really want to make sure that it's a good TikTok and that it seems exactly like it's coming from their personal account. More on TikTok, I would say more likely it's more likely that you're going to want to use the TikTok that they made. So it's very personal. It's like, oh, it's here, it's me, this is my profile. Whereas on Instagram, it's an image, and people are just kind of reacting to the image. But TikToks they're a narrative, they're more of a story.
Yeah, definitely. I also feel like people will stop in the feed if they notice that the profile face is the same as the face that they're seeing acting or talking at them, which is really important. Yeah. So, thank God someone finally did this, because the Facebook thing is still a major pain in the ass. And I remember we put in a feature request for that years ago, and I guess they never listened to us. But yeah, it's really cool that TikTok baked that in. I feel like they're really positioning themselves well to eat a lot of budget. So I guess in starting to wrap up, is there any like major thing that you see on TikTok that like just makes you want to pull your hair out, or you like keep seeing brands do this and you're just like, why? Is there anything that somebody should be aware of as they step into it that they don't mess this up?
Yeah. So one actually is, if you go in the TikTok ads library, and this is so funny that this annoys me. If you go in the TikTok ads library, you can see the like most valuable frame of each ad. You can see where people are clicking through on every single frame of the TikTok. And every time they like arc up, it's a curve that like arcs up right at the end of the video. But I see a lot of people making ads that don't have a clear CTA at the end, or just kind of cut off abruptly, or don't give you a little bit of lingering time at the end to like put your finger where the button is. And like, you have to think about those last 2 or 3 seconds as like the resolution of the argument. Like, someone has to in their brain be like, oh, okay, yes, I am ready to click this button. And if you just cut them off too early, you're never going to get that. Like, it was really, really crazy to see and really pronounced. It's like, oh, okay, everyone clicks in the last 3 seconds. So you should make those last 3 seconds like quite valuable.
That's hilarious. That's exactly like the old YouTube videos and the old YouTube ads,
Yeah.
where they would have like the person talk for 2 minutes while they scrolled through stuff to get the same out clip. I'm assuming it's so much more condensed,
Yeah.
but it sounds like the exact same thing. So I know you're incredibly busy. I know you probably have to jump to 6 other things and a bunch of client work. A couple questions I like to ask everybody in wrapping up is, first, if you recommend one piece of content for everyone in the audience to consume, what would it be and why? Only rule is it cannot be your own.
I thought about this question before the call. There is a clear answer to this. It is the Harry Dry landing page writing guide. If you just Google Harry Dry landing page. Harry Dry, if for those who don't know, is a great marketer. He's a great copywriter. He's on LinkedIn. It's on here we go. It's on marketingexamples.com. My step-by-step guide to landing pages that convert. If you read this page, you can make a landing page that will beat your existing page 100% of the time. It is so well written. It's so clear. It's one of those things like all things in marketing. It's like, everyone's kind of learning the same concepts over different time frames, but this is just, it's distilled down to its absolute essence. Uh, it'll teach you about marketing psychology. It'll teach you about how pages work. It'll teach you how to write copy. It'll teach you how to write instructions. It's brilliant.
Yeah. Marketing Examples is great. They have so many awesome resources if you're looking for inspiration or kind of just want to revamp something. I always like to look there of just like, what else could we be doing? Next question for you. If you had to go back all the way to the beginning to Tim, who was just getting into drop shipping after coming off the road in his rock band, what's one lesson that you would impress upon yourself that if you had to do all over again, you'd make sure to nail the second time?
Oh my God. There's so many. There's so many. Okay, I think there's a specific one that is more that has a more general takeaway from it. So the specific one is like, don't neglect cash management at any stage of running any kind of business. You are probably not thinking about it. Most people probably aren't thinking about it because it's not what motivates you to start a business. It's not what your expertise is. It's really important. It's really important, and it's very easy to spend money on things that you don't even notice, because like, if you think about what our job is to get people to spend money on things without them noticing. And other people are doing that to you. B2B people are doing that to you. Tech products are doing that to you. Like, everyone's doing that at you. And you're in a very heightened state while you're trying to learn something and while you're working to succeed online. So you just need to be careful that you're not just wasting resources. On the other hand, you got to spend money, make money. Like, there's no question about it. Like, you have to learn this stuff somehow, and like, you're going to make these mistakes. But I think the larger point would be like, identify as quickly as possible where your own blind spots are, and the things that you care about and the things that you don't care about. And either find someone to deal with the stuff that you don't care about, or like force yourself to spend some time thinking about why that might be important, because everyone has a blind spot. And if you don't find the person or the thing that's going to fill that gap, it'll just like get more and more and more and more amplified for you. And for example, my blind spot is, I'm very creative. I'll always have an idea. I can always tell you what I would do in an account. I'm a good writer, but my blind spot is I'm bad with, finance, process, organization, keeping everything neat and tidy and prepped. And had I thought about that, had I been like, oh, well, I actually hate doing that, so I'm going to force my brain into doing it, or I'm going to, hire a VA who's going to do all of my finances for me. If I'd done that earlier in the game, I think I would have gone faster. I mean, I went pretty fast, so I don't know how much faster I think I could have gone, but I think I would have gone with more sanity. I think it would have been easier.
Yeah. I think it always comes back to the sanity thing, because I don't think the lack of finances will stop you from necessarily doing anything, but it will definitely make you more nervous about how everything is performing. So that's a good one. A book I really like on that is Profit First by Michael McAllowitz. That I was in a similar boat, and that was huge for me, of like just a simple framework that I could force myself to do to really just, even a high level, just like keep things in check. So one of my last questions for you is, what are you most excited about now? Like, what's going on that you're just really, really excited about?
In the space, or just
dealer's choice, whatever you want to talk about.
Our client quality is really increasing, and like, I've got to the point where the team is smarter than me, and they're working and solving problems before I even know that they exist. And that is like, it's unbelievable. It's the best feeling in the world. It's taken me so long to get to this point. And I'll like wake up, go on Slack, and like, people are already knocking out stuff. People are like thinking in a cool way. People are communicating with clients in a great way. Like, there's stuff done that I wouldn't have even thought of. Stuff that I had thought of is pushed a lot further. I'm like, okay, this is it. And when you get advice from entrepreneurs who are a little more successful, they're always talking about hiring and how important hiring is and how much your life will change when you get the right hires. And it's not that it had never clicked for me, but it had never been so successful. And so that's what I'm stoked about. That's the team is just, they're A players now.
Yeah. And it's really cool where you don't have to worry about, like, there's not so stressed about every single thing working out or going well.
No,
So
exactly.
yeah. One of my last questions for you is, who's someone else we should have on the podcast? Like, who would be another great conversation or someone who's doing something really interesting in the space?
Harry Dry, honestly, I would love to listen to. Have you spoken to Jeremiah from No Commerce?
No, we haven't yet.
I like Jeremiah. He's really smart. And what I like about No is that, they're one of the two post-purchase survey tools. Both are great. I'm agnostic on this because they're both great founders, they're both great products, No Commerce and Inquire Labs. Jeremiah is really deep in the first-party data world or zero-party data and knows how to build out some really interesting long surveys for your customers. And people will answer them after checkout. I think that would be a great guest because it's just a whole other way of looking at and thinking about your data instead of being like, did I grab the right UTM from this click? It's like, well, what did my customers tell me that they want? Or what percentage of them said they came from TikTok? And you can actually go really, really deep with that. And gets quite advanced. So that would be a really cool guest.
Very cool. All right. We'll have to reach out to them. Last question for you. If anyone wants to learn more about Tim or Loop Club, where should they go?
LinkedIn.com/in/Tim-Keane. Just visit me on LinkedIn. I'm always on LinkedIn.
Very cool. Yeah, Tim is an awesome follow. I feel like I aspire to always put out good content. And I feel like every time I see you show up my feed, it's always like something that I stop, actually read, think through. And I'm like, that I really need to think about that and what we do next. So we really appreciate it, Tim. Hope you have a good one.
Likewise. Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening to another week's episode of the Messenger Mastermind podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, please share it with another e-commerce marketer. And always let us know what you think down in the comments below. Also, don't forget to subscribe. If you're looking for cutting edge tactics and the resources that we rely on to run our businesses, sign up for our newsletter. We'll include a link down below. As always, stay confident, connect with your customers, and keep crushing it.